13 inmates participating in a lengthy hunger strike at the Guantanamo Bay detention facility have written a letter to their military doctors demanding better treatment. In the letter, the detainees wrote that they are competent to make their own health decisions when it comes to the ongoing hunger strike. They are also demanding for the U.S. to send in independent, non-military doctors to treat them. Part of that letter reads, quote, "I do not wish to die, but I am prepared to run the risk that I may end up doing so because I am protesting the fact that I have been locked up for more than a decade without a trial, subjected to inhuman and degrading treatment, and denied access to justice. I have no other way to get my message across. You know that the authorities have taken everything from me." More than 100 detainees are currently participating in the hunger strike. Many have become extremely sick in the process. David Reams is a Guantanamo Bay defense counsel representing several of the detainees who wrote that letter, and he joins me now with more. Thank you so much for joining me. So first of all, let's talk about the condition that these men are in right now, the ones that wrote the letter, and the general population there.
Well, the first time that I saw my clients after the hunger strike began was in early March. They had lost an average of 30 pounds each as measured by the clinics, and it was just obvious to the eye that they were much, much thinner. When I went back again at the end of April, early May, they had lost even more weight. They were saying that they had lost up to 50 pounds each, and it really showed. They were weak. One of them, his arms were like sticks. It was really quite a horrible situation.
And as I understand it, 37 of the 103 people that are participating in this hunger strike are now being force-fed. So let's talk about the idea of their demand of an independent, non-military doctor. Why is that so important?
Because the military doctors have to put the military's interests ahead of the individual's interests that they're serving. The most glaring example is whether or not to force-feed a detainee. Under the strictures of the American Medical Association, the World Medical Association, and others, the detainee is supposed to have that choice himself. There are other questions, whether a detainee should be regarded as a hunger striker, when the intervention should occur, how the force feeding should be administered. Those all involve medical issues that independent doctors can make on the basis of the patient's best interests, but military doctors have to make on the basis of the military's best interests.
Now, I want to read part of this letter to you that your clients wrote. It says, quote, "You claim to be acting according to duties as a physician to save my life. This is against my expressed wish. As you should know, I am competent to make my own decisions about medical treatment. When I try to refuse treatments you offer, you force them upon me, sometimes violently. For those reasons, you are in violation of the ethics of your profession, as the American Medical Association and World Medical Association have made clear." Now, the competency part of this letter, of this statement specifically, is really important here because they're saying that once a detainee or somebody that is on a hunger strike becomes incompetent of making their own decisions, then that's when they start force feeding. So does this letter and this claim of competency debunk what the medical officials at Guantanamo Bay are saying?
Well, you can never be sure whether or not the judgment of whether somebody is competent is being made with military interests in mind or the patient's interests. I think that really underlies and underscores the concern that we have.
Okay, so let's talk about the competency in general. Who decides when a man is competent and when he's not competent?
A medical doctor, a psychologist, a psychiatrist does that.
Okay. So in this letter, they expressly say that they are willing to die. Should they have that option, and should the physicians respect their wishes?
Some are willing to die. Others want to be hunger strikers but keep themselves alive. The ICRC, that's the Red Cross, plus the organizations you've mentioned, require the physician to respect the choice that an individual makes in this regard, and therefore should not be force-feeding these detainees.
Now, on the other side of that token, suicide is illegal in most U.S. states, most except for 3, I believe. So if American citizens don't even have this privilege of letting themselves die, of choosing suicide, whether it be assisted suicide or otherwise, should the detainees reasonably expect to get that right as well?
Well, suicide may be illegal. I'm sure it's a very hard law to enforce, but on a more serious note, it's a right under the Constitution. The Supreme Court has held a number of times that the state cannot put things into your body, can't touch your body, even for good motives.
Okay. Now, what kind of pressure would you say the Obama administration would be under if one of these men actually did die? What would it do to us domestically and internationally?
Well, I think you put your finger on the motivation for force-feeding these detainees. It would be disastrous to the United States from a political standpoint if one of the detainees died. In addition to the fact that it would make Guantanamo look really bad, it would create martyrs of the men who did die. As a military commander said, it would turn zeros into heroes.
And as we understand it, two-thirds of the men are still on hunger strike. There's 166 people total in that detention facility, and you haven't had contact with your clients in over a month, right?
That's right. 2 refused to take my telephone calls last Friday because of a new search policy. So we're really under challenge here.
David Reams, human rights attorney, thank you for bringing us that story.